Hello everyone, Minus here, continuing our quest as we dig into the class changes for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, which were unveiled via their website update on August 30th, 2020. But strap yourselves in, because I'm about to go off on the mistakes made on the Druid class page.
Pantheon Plus.
So let's start at the top here, but as I've stated, there's a lot of issues on this Druid page, and it's mostly around spells. In the general info section, the Druid class role has been refined to healer, removing away the previously noted support and utility tags. As we have stated in the previous videos and part of this overall cleanup for the classes, which by the way we feel is very important, especially for new gamers discovering Pantheon for the first time, these cleanups are very good. The combat resource listed for Druid is strictly mana and remains unchanged. Previously, Druids were listed as wearing cloth and leather, and now it appears that their top tier of armor is now light leather, as we've seen some changes to the different armor types as well. Previously, Druids were able to use one-handed blunt and edged, two-handed blunt, and shields. However, now we no longer see shields listed for the Druid, as their weapon types are now club, mace, stave, quarterstaff, and longstaff, removing edged weapons from their arsenal. Races remain unchanged, as players will be able to select from Archai, Darkmere, Elf, Halfling, Human, and Ogre. So let's get into the new or changed abilities. First, imbued trait Black Wolf Swiftness has been renamed imbued trait Speed of the Black Wolf. As an ability that increases speed, this harkens back to EQ's Spirit of the Wolf, and now many will possibly shorten this one to Speed of the Wolf, or SOW. Creeper's Grip is a new ability listed for Druids, which will grip an enemy in vines, healing any ally who damages that enemy. Mantle of Leaves has been renamed Nature Shroud, and is now able to be used indoors, which the previous ability had listed outdoors only. However, that said, it is odd that the ability is listed in text saying can be used indoors, instead of just omitting the outdoors piece. Verdanfire Spear is now named Verdanfire Lance, and performs the same. It also confirms, although not listed, Herode's Gaze does still exist as an ability. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this video. Now, before I get into all the abilities that are missing from Druid, I want to talk quickly about this. On the previous site, the Druid was very heavy in announced abilities when compared to some of the other classes. Because of the nature of the Druid and the ability to heal through their pet, having only 13 spells on the new site really provides a very short-sighted view of this class. I actually worry about this greatly because the way the class is listed as a healer now, but it only has one of the previous heal spells remaining, which really isn't even a heal, but a life-saving buff. And if you count Herode's direct heal, it's the only heal on the list. There's also no direct discussion of Herode itself that would explain what this creature is and why it's important. They also have two different life-saving abilities in Seed and Chrysalis, which is needlessly repetitive, and if we're limited to only showing 13 spells, I question that decision. I think this is a big mistake on the webpage because this class is a pet healing class, which will require the combined effort of healing on the Druid and strategic use of the pet in order to maximize healing and functionality. Again, I'm very concerned that new people discovering the Druid are going to get a very wrong image of this class. So we'll get back into this after we cover some of the abilities are no longer shown. I'm going to break them down in section here because there are so many. So first, let's talk about the featured spells of the Druid. First is Reverberation. It is a passive ability which states when an ally is under the effects of healing abilities, they are healed by another player, that healing effect will jump to another group member. Storm Warden is a passive ability in which a Druid becomes the heart of any storm. If a storm is active in the area, you receive bonus healing effects outdoors. Now the next ability, Stormkeeper, allows Storm Warden to be used indoors. I see this probably being removed as a base spell and possibly added as a top-end mastery effect. So the Druid also has some more imbued traits than are listed currently on the website, and these are Panther's Claw, which increases strength and AC of your target and makes them immune to stun effects from physical attacks, Oaken Regeneration, which helps health regeneration of a target as well as amplifying the Druid's heals on the target, Veilhawk's Grace, which increases the target's jumping height and allows them to glide while falling, and Grizzly's Resilience, which gives them stamina and AC buffs, and they are less likely to be stunned by physical attacks. Now the last one is called Thunderpaw's Resilience. This is actually just a buffed version that replaces Grizzly's Resilience. I really think this is probably just going to become a mastery set of Grizzly's Resilience rather than being its own separate ability. So let's move on and talk about the healing abilities that are no longer listed on the site. This is a huge disservice to properly painting a picture of what I feel the Druid does. Preserver's Wildfire, this is an ability that damages enemies in an AoE and heals allies that are within that same space. Vinewoven Grove will encircle yourself with vines and then protect you from damage. Until the vines are destroyed, you actually regenerate HP, but any movement will cancel the effect. Weave the Wind buffs an ally to stop all physical ranged attacks from inflicting damage on them for a short time. Verdant Tree creates a tree that heals all allies near it over time. The closer you are, the more healing you receive. It also buffs up Verdant Seed, an ability to absorb damage, and it also improves another ability called Verdant Vines. Next, let's jump into Herode and all of its abilities. First of all, as I stated before, they omitted any explanation of Herode. This could be easily added in the class description, but this must be a part of this page to help people understand the type of healing class that the Druid is. This is a huge omission, and for those that don't know that this is a pet healing class, they're basically going to have no clue what a Druid represents in Pantheon. So with the pet comes a series of abilities that it can perform outside the ones listed. Herode's Focus keeps the pet on you and amplifies your abilities. Herode's Presence commands your pet to stand by an ally, and they are then healed by Herode every time that target is healed by another source. Herode's Shelter allows Herode to stand near a target ally, and all healing the target receives is increased. The target will generate less hate. And finally, Herode's Rescue will pull an ally to the center of your Verdant tree and leave rock vines where your enemy was standing, rooting enemies around that location. Finally, let's talk about the Druid's offensive abilities. Call Lightning will strike an enemy with lightning inflicting shock damage. During a storm, it'll have much more stronger effects and strike additional times. If the target is wet, they'll be critically hit. Verdant Vines, which we talked about earlier, grows vines around the group to reflect physical and magical damage that the group will take back at the enemy. Upheaval will push enemies away from you by pulling the roots and earth below their feet. It will also not trigger a cooldown if Herode's Focus is activated on yourself. Rockvine Tangle will root enemies and deal moderate damage over time. If Herode's Gaze is active on the enemy will also take a reduction in their AC. Gust of Leaves will interrupt spellcasting, and if Herode's Gaze is active on the enemy, it will cause the next ability on that enemy to critically hit. So there's been a lot removed from the Druid, and it's mainly due again to the 13 spell cap they've decided to put on the classes for the webpage revamp. For the most part, a lot of the classes still look and feel great for those just discovering them. I've had a slight problem with the Paladin in our coverage of their updates, but that was just slight because it seemed to focus more on their healing abilities than their tanking abilities. But I have a big problem with the spells selected for the Druid. The class page for the Druid does not currently reflect how a player's mindset will need to be if they want to be a Druid, plain and simple. First, the biggest mechanic of the Druid is Herode, and it's glossed over completely on how it works. This needs to be added in the description of the class, and doesn't even need to be added as a spell. The class is missing most of its healing style right now with what's listed. We see a lot of prevention spells more than healing spells, two of which are barely even different. While it's neat to see Vinewoven Bridge and Firefly, these could be removed to put in more healing flavor. In the class page changes thus far, VR has done a great job of narrowing the class role focus, and for the most part, they've represented it greatly with the spell selection. I try hard not to be critical and instead dig into the whys, but I have to be critical of the decisions made on this Druid page. That said, those of us that have been around, we all know what Herode's Flame means and how it'll function, but what about new players? That's what these websites are for. I urge VR to rethink the spell selection here to paint a better picture. I know I've been rather critical of the Druid for how it heals in the past, but do not mistake this criticalness of the page as a knock on the Druid. The Druid is a very unique healing class, and I think it needs to be represented here, even if the style of healing is not my preferred flavor. So Druid fans, am I being too harsh? Do you think the page paints a good picture for future Pantheon fans? Would you agree or disagree with me that the spell selection on this page needs a major rework, and that Herode must be mentioned in the class description? Let me know what you think, and we hope you'll be joining us for the remaining class updates we cover in the upcoming week. Until next time.